was going to say good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. Today's a special one. Today's a different one. I know you guys said to me that you were cool with me talking by myself last week. I obviously must have given the impression that that Fridays are never going to happen anymore. That I gave you guys the impression that it's all over. That I'm that I'm hanging up my hat, so to speak. I haven't really listened to the podcast, but I'm sorry if I gave that impression. I'm not giving up Fridays. Maybe I was just having a bad day, but Fridays are continuing. It's the normal format. But I thought today we might have, it might not be every Friday, but we're going to have a guest host to fill in for Steve. And today I have to say, my friend from the UK, Ajmal is here, flat cap driver. Hi, Ajmal.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. I've been excited about this for a few days now.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad you could do it. Because I know you have busy days as well. We're just talking about our COVID frustration and routines. Ajmal and I talk quite a lot on DM and and WhatsApp. And then I said to him the other day, does he want to come on this episode? I'll be really honest with you guys. We've kind of come on here. We're not really prepared. We're semi-prepared. But, we can easily talk about Porsche. We don't have any problems about that. So for those of you who haven't been here before, I should just say, my name is Michael Barth. If you haven't heard of Ajmal before, Ajmal is flat cap driver and he's on Instagram, he's on YouTube. He does really, really great videos, long videos that you can listen to in the car while you're driving. You can listen to them at home. So check his YouTube channel out and check out his Instagram and give him a follow. I see your numbers are getting up there, Ajmal. You're getting quite a bit of a following over there.
Well, they're increasing ever so slowly. I'm getting more engagement from people. I guess the views probably aren't going that much higher, but I'm getting great engagement. People send me such great messages, and I really love that. DMs on Instagram or messages on YouTube. So, and that's the satisfaction, I guess.
How are you finding the content monster? I call it the content monster, the one you have to keep feeding. If you don't keep feeding it, it just dies. It's like my YouTube channel, because I only put the podcast on YouTube now and I don't really do videos at the moment. I will start to do them again, but I don't really do videos at the moment, as you know. I see how my stats, when you see your stats on YouTube, my views are like, they've dropped a lot. But the Instagram algorithm eventually catches up on you. For people that don't know, you really do have to keep outputting videos all the time. Same as Instagram, actually. You got to keep putting photos all the time. This is how these things work. They take a lot of time to get 15,000 followers actually on Instagram for my PorscheCooled is liking a lot of Porsche posts, posting a lot of posts, commenting on a lot of posts. It takes a long time to get there. You can do it organically. A lot of people don't, but it's a monster. It really is a monster.
Well, I did do the look at Instagram and thought, how can I grow that? But then, much like anything, I got a bit lazy and I got a bit bored feeding the monster. But with YouTube, I'm not very active on there, so I literally do probably a video if it's frequent, probably one every 2 weeks, and.
Right.
But I always do it in a way that I've got to have something to say. And it's only a couple of times that I've jumped on. I was just talking about, feeding the monster. And sometimes it's really hard to tag the video or to give it a title that's quite punchy, because you think, I've talked about 50 different things in 20 minutes. And then it's the time as well, because when you think, I don't actually go anywhere in the car. So for a household that has 4 cars and you don't need to go anywhere, when you do go anywhere, you think, oh, when was the last time I drove that car? Is the battery still going to be okay? Is it going to fire up? Then it becomes this big thing.
But the funny thing with you is when you go out and you say you're going out for milk, see, that's become like a bit of a thing, Everyone has their thing on YouTube, and that's kind of like your thing. It's like Ajmal always says, I'm going out for milk. I'm going to pick up milk, and you're driving for 40 minutes to get milk. Like, where in the hell is your shop? You know what I mean? So I think that's quite entertaining for a lot of people. Anyway.
Well, I mean, the milk thing, the first time I was actually going for milk and I just missed the turning. And It's a big country lane, and I just thought, I'm just going to keep going.
All right. Before we get started, before we get into it, I just want to give well wishes, congratulations out to Steve, his wife and him, Cindy, his wife and Steve, welcomed their baby girl into the world a couple of days ago. So congratulations. I'm sure everyone is saying the same thing. And that was a good thing. So Steve's very, very happy. He's got another little girl. So he's got 2 little girls now. So congratulations, mate. And I hope everything is going well. As I was just talking to Ajmal, I had to go and take my wife to, we're getting vaccinated here in Bahrain. They've got a vaccination program. I don't know who's for vaccination or against vaccination. I was against vaccination, but I was talked into it, so I've done it. Only because, we're planning to travel back to Sydney and all that sort of thing, and we have a funny feeling that Australia is going to make it easier for you to go back to Australia if you are vaccinated, and you may not have to do hotel quarantine. But anyway, I took my wife out there today. She got the call last night. You get the call the night before here in Bahrain, and you go to the hospital. I'm driving out to the hospital, Ajmal, to King Hamad University Hospital here in the Merc. I get a warning buzzer on the dash, a triangle, and then there's no power. There's no power. It's like, yikes. I'm about to come onto the freeways here, and the freeways here are 120 kilometers, so cars are moving fast, and I had no power, of course. So then I'm thinking, okay, we're not going to make it to the hospital. We're going to break down on this busy road. We get to the hospital. I drop my wife off, and then I go and park in the car park. And of course, I think, I'll just try and start the car after 2 minutes of sitting there. No, nothing at all. So It's completely dead. So then I had to call the guy from the office, and he came and he couldn't get it started. He couldn't jump start it. I didn't think he could jump start an old Merc anyway, but he tried. He tried to jump start it with the Audi, the old Audi. So that was a funny. I should have taken a photo of it. That was a funny occasion. So it didn't start. But I was thinking, and I'm getting to a point here. I was thinking, and this makes me think about classic cars. You know what I mean, Ajmal? It makes me think about when you have a classic car, and I have never owned a classic car. And when you're driving a classic car, is that the thought in the back of your mind that you think, because I like it when my 911 has just been serviced and everything's perfect. I hate it when things aren't fixed. You know what I mean? And with your 912, when you're driving, do you always have that thought in your head, hey, I'm going to break down in the middle of nowhere here?
You do sometimes. It depends, because obviously the longer you have a car, the more you drive it, the more you get to know it, the more confidence you have in it, or the less confidence as you get to know it more. But the thing with my 912 is I don't know it very well. You've seen the videos. Virtually all of my drives are there on my YouTube channel. There's probably about 5 or 6 of them. And Sunday I drove it, was the longest drive I've ever been. And that was 35 minutes. And during that drive, and I remember having that exact thought, what if I broke down? But then I thought, no, I guess that's part of the package of owning a classic car. So
right.
I put my foot down, I redlined it just to see if it could, and it made it home. But at the same time, it could equally have just died. And it's the same with my 996. It could equally do that when I'm thrashing it through the gears.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know for me, like I said, I like reliability. I like the look of classic cars, and I want a 912, and, I think about it, but I do think about that fact that, because I remember years ago when I had cars and they were crappy cars, when I was in high school, and, they used to break down, and you'd just be stranded somewhere in the middle of the night. You'd be go to a party, you come back and you'd be stranded somewhere, and it's just like, what's going on? So I kind of remember those days, and I don't really want to go back to that sort of situation, because especially when you're not very mechanical and you can't just, I'll open the engine and I'll, tweak the carburetor, or I'll do whatever I have to do to get it started again. I don't know how to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree completely, because I love the convenience. I love reliability, but there's a certain, so normally if you have a classic car, you can have a completely gone through nut and bolt restoration. It drives perfectly. There's still a chance that something might go wrong, but it's less likely. Whereas with mine, I do carry a couple of things that I just think that I might need. Now, number one, obviously, is my breakdown service card. Don't go anywhere without that.
Yes.
And I'm a member of a breakdown service that doesn't care which car you're in.
Oh, okay.
As long as so it covers you and not the car.
Oh, that's good.
So that's really important. But I also carry, and you might have seen it I put it on Instagram. It's a power bank. So the kind of thing that you plug your phone into. But mine also has jump leads coming out of it.
Okay, so you can...
So you can just have a little bit of a boost if you left the lights on or something like that happened.
Right.
So I've had to use that twice. But otherwise, I think it's one of those things. If you have a classic car, at first you will always have that overriding feeling of, is it going to break down? Am I going to be stranded? The stress and anxiety of that. But as you have more confidence in it, you'll drive it for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and you'll think, no, it's actually pretty reliable, and you forget about it until obviously that inevitable first time that it actually happens. And then
But you have your little kit in the car with your essentials that you need just in case, anything does happen in a way. So you have your little breakdown kit in a way, so you're prepared. Good idea.
Yeah, for the most common thing. Yeah, for the most common thing that you might think, the battery will go flat.
Yeah.
And that's about it really. You can't really cater for a lot of other things,
right?
Because it could be anything.
Yep.
But I think, as I say, I keep saying to you, go and test drive one.
Yeah, no. Well, when I go back to London, maybe. I want to. Let's get into that. Let me just cover these two things first, and then we'll get into the 912 and we'll get into the 911 story, what we're going to talk about today. I just want to do a shout out. So if anyone hasn't listened to it yet, I know you haven't, Ajmal. You told me before we started recording, but there's the new PorscheCooled owner stories with Joey. It's another really good one because Joey's got an 88, 911 Carrera, G50. I know that Nick from Australia, who's coming up on a future owner stories, he said to me G50 isn't necessarily the best gearbox. There's nothing wrong with the other one. I know a lot of people think the G50 is the pinnacle. Joey's got the G50. I know when I was looking at those cars years ago, I was also looking for the G50, which is the 87 to 89, I think, or just before they were cut out. I think it was 89. Joey's from Vancouver. He found the car in LA. He picked the car up in LA because he moved to LA. And now he's back in Canada. But I think when he moved back to Canada, he said he actually drove it from LA to Canada, which was like a nice 4-day drive. I think he took the long way home as well, which is a great thing to do, Ajmal. So he took the long way back. But it's pretty cool. It's got black and black wheels. I put the link in the podcast actually for everyone if you haven't seen it. It's a Flickr page and it's Tommy G500. And that's the previous owner's images of the car who said Joey could actually use those images. He's pretty cool about it. So check out those images on the Flickr page because Joey doesn't have many on his Instagram, and it's a really, cool Carrera, 88 Carrera. So that's that. I also recorded a couple of other owner stories over the weekend. One with PJ, who's got a 356A. That's coming up in a few weeks. PJ's from the UK. He's a friend of Nick's and a friend of Jack's, who's been on the owner stories before. He's got a really good story. He's got a really nice 356 Ajmal. Have you seen that on Instagram? PJ's Instagram?
I have seen it, and it does look amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I reposted a picture on PorscheCooled the other day, the one he had in his garage, because it was a really cool shot. But there's an interesting story actually, because Todd at Stone City Outlaw in near Chicago, Todd's also got a 356A, and their numbers between their cars, and I hope I'm getting this right, is very close. They'll probably even on the production time at the production line in Porsche at the same time. They're very, very close, the numbers, because they're both 356As. Todd's obviously doing a project car, his Outlaw project. PJ's driving his car now. So another great owner story is coming up with that one. I just want to do a couple of shout outs to the people who have left reviews for PorscheCooled. The first one, I'm not going to read it out. I'm just going to tell you who it was from. 5-star review. Thank you so much. Like I said, the reviews on Apple Podcasts are really important because they're important because it makes us come up in the search results and it makes us be in the charts of Apple Podcasts. And I know you guys have been supporting that. There's been a lot of ratings and a lot of reviews. I can see the numbers change each week. Not all of you write a review, but you always give me a star rating, so that's great. But we had a couple of reviews during the week. One from President J in the United States. I'm not sure who that is. That's a great login name. President J in the United States. And then from Van City Fly Guy in Canada. So thank you so much for those reviews. I won't read them out because they're not too long, but I won't read them out. But thank you for reviewing those. Thank you for reviewing the podcast, I should say. What else? So I want to just talk about, before we get into the 911 bit, Ajmal, I just want to talk about colors, Porsche colors. And I kind of touched on this last week about how it's really difficult with colors because the color of a car or a Porsche that you order, it's like the crayon chalk. How depending on where you live, it looks completely different in the environment. You know what I mean? And, that shark blue color that they used on the GT3, Did you see it? The new shark blue, the launch color?
Yes, I did, yeah.
It's a kind of a weird color. I've seen more photos of it during the week when it's not in the studio, and it's actually not a nice blue. It's kind of weird. Like it looked good in the studio, but it doesn't look good in the environment on the street.
I think there's you're right, but also there's colors that come out and they seem either, very, very subjectively, you might look at it and go, actually, I don't like that. And it grows on you at a later date. But there's also history has taught us, if you look back, there's colors that have been very popular at the time. And I think in the mid-90s, the 993 came in a burgundy red type color.
Yeah, that metallic red color.
Yeah, and I remember a friend of mine had one. And at the time, everyone thought that's a great color to have. If you saw it going down the road, you thought, great. And if you looked at it now and you had the choice between that and a silver one or a red one, not my particular favorite, or a dark blue one or a green one, you would always favor those over that. And I just wonder if this blue that they've done for the GT3, is it one that's going to grow on people more and more, or is it one that people will look back and go, what were Porsche thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a more conservative blue than, say, Miami blue, than the really pale sort of bright blue. It's much more conservative than Miami blue. It's not as nice as the Mexico blue, which I think, or was it Riviera blue, the one that's got a bit of darkness to it. It's still bright, but it's a bit darker. I think Riviera blue and Mexico blue are the two best blues, I think, for me. I still really like that old Porsche color, which I know that Porsche Malone, which is Ingham Collection, he's got a Touring in Arrow Blue. I still think that old Porsche color Arrow Blue, which you could get as a PTS, I think that's a really beautiful blue. It's a bit purple, but I still think it's a really beautiful blue.
It feels more timeless, that one.
Yeah, it does. I mean, even the blue of your car, is a really nice blue. Yeah. That's not. What's the factory name for that color?
Mine. I don't actually know, because I'm not sure it's factory, because when I went out on Saturday and someone who was cycling past sort of circled back, came back and said, oh, it's a 912, I've got a 912. And the first thing he said was, I've never seen a purple one. And I went, oh, really? But it's blue. But it's blue. And he said, oh, it looks a bit purple. And I remember thinking, I've never seen that. I don't think it's a Porsche color.
That's the problem, isn't it? It depends how you see colors. You can see how some people would see it as purple. It depends on how you see colors, though, I guess. I think it's quite a good blue.
And I always think I like it, and I always think it's blue. But yeah, every now and again someone says, I didn't know they came in purple. And I want to say they don't.
They don't. Yeah, I've got this real thing at the moment for really basic colors. I've gone back to being, I own a silver 911, so there you go. But I really like Nick's white 912. I really like the black ones. Like, I've been looking at the two black ones that Rint has it? Is that how you call it?
Yes. Yep, that's the one, yep.
Yeah, those two black ones at Rint, especially the one, the 65 3-dial, I think it's £54,000. I've been looking at that because it's been for sale for like 6 months or something. And then on piston heads, I don't know whether you've seen it, on piston heads during the week, a 912 came up for sale in the UK. He's only put one image. I asked him if he's going to put more images. He said yes, but he still hasn't put more images up. I happened to find it, though, because it was sold at Bonhams in 2016. So I actually found the other images of it. It's actually quite a good car. It looks like, in 2016, it looked like quite a good car. And he said he's owned it for the last 4.5 years. He's done plenty of work on it. He said most of the work was done. It was originally imported from the US, and he wants £44,000 for it. So obviously £44,000 is a pretty good price. It's a pretty good price.
It is, and I've seen a few around about that price, but I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot that haven't sold even at that price, and I still feel they're overpriced, 912s in general. Well,
to put it into perspective, that car, I mean, like I said, he said it was sold at, was it Bonhams? Goodwood or Bonhams? Bonhams, I think. Anyway, I found the car. It's definitely the car because it's got the same number plate. It sold for £33,000 in 2016. But in 2016, and then, the £33,000 had, I think they charge you 15% fee on top of that. So let's say it's, £37,000, £38,000. and he's only wanting £44,000 for it. And then on 912 registry, it was for sale on Samba back in 2012, I think it was, for 25,000 US.
Wow.
So that's the progression of prices, yeah. So it was quite interesting because all the information is there. If you look, I like to search these things out, and all the information was there. So, I mean, it's not a bad one though.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised at some, because when you look, so if I bought mine, everybody knows I was quite open about it. I bought mine for 30,250, and my overriding reason for buying this particular one was because it was nearby. And that was literally it. It was 10 miles up the road.
That's a good reason, though.
And like I've said again, I'm incredibly lazy, and I thought, I can't be bothered to travel anywhere. It was at an online auction, classic car auction site. And I didn't go and see it. I just bid on it and thought, what's going to happen? And I'd won it. And then I thought, where am I going to get the money from? But when I got it, obviously it needed quite a few things fettling just to get it going. And Jack, Flat Six Jack, he was brilliant. He did all of those things. And it goes, it fires up every day. It drives. It might not drive perfect, and also I knew what I was getting into because it's not the original color. It's not the matching numbers. And those kind of things, it depends, because if they become really important to you, then you have to look at towards the top end. But if you then say, well, actually, no, I just want to be driving one, and I'm not looking for an investment, I just don't want it to go down in price, then it opens up a bigger market, I think. Yeah. And that's really important even with 911s and older 912s. Otherwise, you're always looking at the top end of it.
Well, the black one, I think 44 is I think that should be closer to 40, that black one, but it is matching numbers. It is a matching numbers car, so I guess that puts a little bit more credibility into it. I don't know. Well, but it's a crazy market. Look at the prices in America. The prices on, forget about bring a trailer now. The prices have gone insane on there for 912s. Absolutely insane. Gotcha. The hype is just,
But is that because, I think we might have had this conversation before where I think Magnus Walker was talking about one of the most underrated Porsches to have and as a driving car is the 924.
Yeah.
I don't know if we might have talked about that. And I remember thinking, well, he can say that because that's an evolution of his journey as a Porsche owner, user, driver. If you're thinking, I really, really want a Porsche, you're never going to plump for a 924 given the choice. You evolve to that point.
Yeah.
And I think most people will say, it's my, finger in the air at straw poll with a few people that I know. If you said, what's the number one Porsche that you want to get into? It's going to be a 911. It's going to be a GT3. It's going to be some kind of RS.
Yeah.
And anything else will be just further down the pecking order. So the 912, I think, has become elevated in that same way, but also where it's been deemed by those people who are 911 aficionados who've said, oh, actually a great car to have is a 912. And enough people have said it to start forcing the price up. Which is a bit of a pain for everybody who wants to get into Porsche ownership.
And I guess, last week when I talked solo, I was talking about, 911 for every budget or something like that. I think I called it. I can't remember what I called the podcast. I think it was 911 for every budget. And how it's getting harder and harder. And I guess that comes on to, the title of today's podcast, which is, So You Want a 911, which is what we're calling today's podcast. And it kind of follows on, and that's why I thought it'd be good to have that conversation with you, because you suggested that topic, because it does follow on from how I was talking last week. And, it is kind of important when you say, so you want a 911, it's like most people do want a 911. They don't just want a Porsche. They don't want a Boxster. They don't want a 944 or a 924 or a 928. And, referring back to Magnus Walker is an interesting one because even he says, when he bought these cars, they were nothing. They cost him nothing. They were so cheap. Most of those cars he bought, apart from his latest GT3, 996 and his GT2, he didn't pay very much for his cars. What did he say? At one stage he had 6 930 turbos or 5 930 turbos.
Something insane.
Something insane. Like, when you think about what they're worth, because he bought them when they were worth nothing, They were really worth very little. So it's very hard for someone today, and we keep coming back to this and I keep touching on it in owner stories and chats with Steve and the previous episodes and with you. Is like, you want a 911, but what is it? So would you recommend, and this is why I want to get onto it, would you recommend that someone should start with a classic? Like, they want a 911, do you think they should get into a classic first, or you think that they really should get into something more modern?
It's your appetite for, like we said before, fettling something, having it in storage. Because if you say, well, actually, I really want to get into 911 ownership, but I don't want to break the bank. But also, if you don't have children or you have another car, that's your more practical thing every day. And you can then say, well, I drive an SUV, for example, as my daily. I don't need an SUV. Why don't I just sell that? And a modern SUV, you think about, well, actually, my 996 probably isn't a realistic price anymore.
Yep.
But just for the listeners, it cost £6,500 2 years ago. No, that's not no longer a realistic price. But if you went towards the bottom end in the UK of 996 ownership and you said, I want a Carrera, just a 996 Carrera, and I want it to be in decent shape, but I don't want it to be mega low mileage or anything like that, you can get one for 10 to 12,000, or maybe top end towards 15,000, a really good one.
Yeah, see, the article that I referred to last week, and I can't remember where I read it actually, but the article, they had it as being 15,000 for a 996 Carrera. Now, I'm not sure. They weren't very clear on what they said was the level of it. And I have mentioned this before. I know it's, I know you'd mentioned to me once before, I think on our Instagram live, it was somewhere around 12 grand, even though you paid much less than that. This is why it amazes me with Australian prices, because Australian prices now are hitting the point where they're almost at 997 prices. And they're kind of pushing 997 prices up, but not as much as I thought. Like, the gap is a lot smaller. I don't know. Someone mentioned to me once before, is it going to be like, was it Steve or someone else who's on Owner Stories? Is it going to be like the 964, 993 scenario? Is the 996 going to was the ugly duckling? Is it going to take over the 997 for a bit in prices? Like the 964 did with the 993?
I think there's a possibility, only because there was a big backlash against the 996, wasn't there? Because, for all sorts of reasons, it had the front the same as the Boxster. It was the first completely redesigned 911, and it was water-cooled. But when you think about the numbers that it sold in, now it outsold the 993 and the 964 combined.
Yeah.
And it was because it was the first one that you could own and drive every single day. It doesn't matter what weather it is, what time of year it is, and which is why I was able to benefit from the fact that I could buy one that someone had been using every day. It wasn't some kind of garage, pristine kept car that was top end of the market. But this thing about them getting close to the 997 prices, I think it's a really important point, because there were a lot of articles when I first bought mine that said, go and buy the best one you can afford. And that's the problem. When you go to the best 996 you can afford, you are starting to overlap at the bottom end of 997.
Yeah.
And that's when people make the mistake. They go, oh, maybe I should buy a 997, and you've suddenly flipped from going best 996 to worst 997.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and it's kind of getting like that. I guess, we keep going back to the Carrera 4S, the 996 Carrera 4S, which is about, well, there's a good comparison, actually. The Carrera 4S, and I'll quote Australia because I'm not sure about the UK or US at the moment. Carrera 4S, good ones, are the same price as my car in Australia. My car has just been reinsured for 86,000 Australian dollars, which is less than I paid for it. It actually went down in price, but they'd only take it up to that price. It's 86,000 insured Australian dollars, and a Carrera 4S is somewhere between 80 and 90,000 Australian dollars. So, but that's the 4S, which is a top. You know what I mean? You're talking base Carrera 997 to 4S, and you're also talking my car with very low kilometers. Very low miles. So.
Yes, and I think the the issue that I've always had with, because obviously I want more people to be driving 911s, and I think that there's availability out there. Yeah. But what happens is people do start looking at it as an investment, and as soon as you look at it as an investment, you almost force yourself into the top end because you say, well, I want it to have an amazing service history. I want it to have low miles. I want it to have a low number of owners. And suddenly, obviously, the price starts creeping up. And then you talk yourself into inactivity because so many more variables come into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you said, my budget is, I don't know, £14,000, and you went and found one for 14,000, and you looked at it and you thought, do you know what, it drives great. It's had all the crucial things done. There's nothing broken on it. I could drive home in it today. But it's all of those other variables come in and it creates noise and people get distracted and then end up doing nothing. And I can understand because it's not a small or insignificant amount of money. But from my point of view, when I bought mine, I had already seen on places like eBay where people were selling broken ones for the same price. And I thought, what's the worst that could happen? It will implode and I'll just stick it on eBay.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult though. It is very difficult for someone coming in at the moment, if you're wanting a 911, because we keep saying, you can't wait, right? I mean, you were very quick on yours. You got it at a good price. You can't really wait. And I keep saying, Australia, I did see one actually last week, and it was in that metallic red color that you just spoke about in a 996 Carrera. And that's the cheapest I've seen. It had 250 or 280,000 kilometers, so it was pretty high mileage. And it was 49,000 Australian dollars. So that's about, 30 was that 25,000 pounds? No, 28,000 pounds around about.
Yeah.
That's the
huge
cheapest.
Money.
That's the cheapest. So that's what you're looking for in Australia. You're getting 50. Now, what other 911s can you get around 50,000? Nothing. Nothing, actually. You can't get anything. What other Porsches can you get around that price? Boxster. And even a good Boxster, you're looking at, Boxsters range from 30 to 55, the 986. So, that's the range you have, Australian dollars. So there's not a lot. I mean, at least in the UK and the US, you can find these bargains. You found your 996. James at Auto Amateur, he found that 996 project car.
Yep.
Other people I've spoken to, Jack had a 996 as well. You know what I mean? And I think people like, is it Friends Green Porsche? I always forget the name of them, Friends Greens or Greens Friends or whatever, that Porsche on YouTube that's been mentioned. I think they do a great thing for 996s and 997s because they specialize in them, Ajmal. And they're always like, I've been watching that guy's videos. I think his videos are good. And he seems to turn over the cars so quickly. And those sort of things are good because it gets people into the 996 and 997, but it also pushes the price up. So it makes it harder for new people to come in. And what happens, here's the question for you. What happens when there's no more cheap 996s? What are people going to buy? This is the thing, what are they going to buy?
It depends because, exactly. It's the stepping into the market because as the 996 goes up, because it will then become that thing, almost a self-fulfilling statement uttered by somebody like, I don't know, Jeremy Clarkson or somebody like that, who said, oh, well, there's someone driving a Boxster or a Boxster S. It's somebody who can't afford 911. It's somebody who's driving a Boxster. It's somebody who can't afford a Boxster S.
Yeah.
But if somebody was saying, I really want a Porsche and a Boxster, what was available to them, I don't think there's anything wrong with owning a Boxster because I bet you they are immense fun to drive.
Yeah,
immense
absolutely.
fun with totally usable power on the road. The 2.5 litre, 2.7, whatever it might be, the 3.2, the Boxster S, they will have accessible, usable power on the roads that you could properly enjoy every day.
And I think a Boxster is a good, we're talking 986 Boxsters here. I'm talking, older Boxsters, 986, 987, so first generation. I think they're good if you have a 911. And, it could be in this week's owner stories, actually. I forget who's coming up next. It could be Eric, actually, coming up. He bought a 911, and then he literally bought a Boxster straight afterwards. And the Boxster is the one he's having fun with. He's modding a little bit because his other one has a warranty and the Boxster doesn't have the same warranty. And he loves it. He said it's a great drive. It's a great, completely different to the 911, but as much fun. You know what I mean? And I think if you have a 911, it probably works. I think if you want a 911 and you buy a Boxster, I think due to public opinion, you're going to be upset. I really do think you're going to be upset. Yeah.
Yes, and it's that pecking order, isn't it? Because you haven't evolved to a Boxster. You've gone in at a Boxster when you really want the 911.
Okay, but Stephen, who was on Owner Stories a few weeks back, who's got the red 981 manual Boxster. I don't know if you heard that one.
I did.
That episode of the podcast was one of the, and I think I mentioned this to Stephen, is one of the best episodes for downloads. So
wow.
That just shows you. Now, is it the red Boxster? You know, people like Boxsters, people like convertibles. So it's not like they're not, you know, Boxsters are popular. You know what I mean? I mean, we talk about Porsche people who say, you know, Porsche snobs and think that Boxsters aren't a true Porsche, but it's a different Porsche, you know? It's not the same as a 911, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have, you know, great attributes, which it obviously does. But yeah, so it's definitely popular. You know, people like it. People like the idea of a Boxster, and I think people like the idea of a cabriolet and a convertible. Lots of people I've spoken to, Ajmal, and you probably heard them, you know, have got 996 cabriolets, you know, because the cabriolet is a little bit cheaper. You know, they want the drop top. That's what you want. You know, you're living in a good climate. You know, why not enjoy it and get one?
Yeah, I agree completely. And you're right. The Porsche snobs.
In a good way.
Because I obviously have a problem with that as well, because when I'm out and about in my very crusty 996, there are people who come and talk to me and go, "Oh, you really have to wash that. You really have to do this. You really have to do that." Yeah, and I'm always no, I don't. I just need to drive it. There's the one thing that I would change about my ownership about the 996. I wish I could drive it more. I wish I could just enjoy it more.
Yeah, when I see your 996 images on Instagram, I want to find your address and buy you one of those outdoor Porsche covers and send it to you, so you can at least have a cover over the car. So at least it's protected.
But that would mean I'd have to wash it,
sap, and you know all the rest of it,
and bird mess.
So I want to get into your car actually, but before I do that, I've just forgotten. I just want to do a shout out to a new Patreon member, and it's actually John, who's coming up who I recorded on the weekend. I think it's in a month's time. He's coming up on Owner Stories. John joined PorscheCooled Exclusive. So thank you so much, John. John reached out to me after I said that we were up in the charts in Norway. I think we're in the top 5 in Norway at one point. And he said, well, I'm in Norway if you want to talk to a Porsche owner from Norway. And he just happens to have a really cool car. He has a 996.2 GT3 in speed yellow. And it's a really beautiful example. He works for Maguire's in Norway. I think I mentioned that to you before.
Yeah.
And he really, he likes the cleaning. He likes the detailing. He's a bit like me. He's not like you. And it looks really, really good. And he just changed the wheels on his GT3 to BBS wheels, which cost a fortune. And it looks really, really good. It looks really good. So that's coming up. So I just want to say thank you to John for joining our PorscheCooled Exclusive, because I forgot that at the beginning of the episode. So I want to get back onto the 912 actually, because, I was saying to you before we started recording, I get really upset when I look at Instagram sometimes, because last weekend was obviously a sunny day in London. And you're out in your 912. Mm-hmm. Nick at the Classic Series is out in his car. Jack at Sunburnt Lobster was posting pictures out in his car. PJ, who's coming up with the 356, was out in his car. Then I look at Australian people I know, and they're all out driving their cars in Sydney summer. Mm. And, in COVID times, it's very depressing for me that I'm stuck here without a 911.
It doesn't help that your Mercedes broke down as well.
And the Mercedes broke down today as well. But I want to get onto Nick's car, because Nick has done some work on his car, and he's done it at Flat Six Jack as well. And he's sorted out, the exhaust and the wheels and stuff. So what are you planning before the summer starts? What are you planning to do for your car? Because I know I did leave a comment in jest, of course, on your post the other day about, you got to catch up. So what are you planning to do?
The number one thing I have to do is the stance. It just sits all wrong, and it's completely my fault, because when I first got it, I don't know if I've put any photos on Instagram of it, but the wheels were really at the back, were really tucked into the arch, and the camber was in a way that I felt like it was too low. I thought, I've seen some on Instagram that are kind of the same height at the front of the back. I like the look of that. I'll go for that. So I said to Jack, can you do that? And it just looks all wrong.
So you like it? You like it sitting, because the black one at Rint, the 65, it sits quite high because they've got a video on their channel about it, and I can see it at the back. It sits, I'm guessing that was the standard stance or the standard height. It sits quite high. I know Nick has lowered his slightly. He said he wanted to lower it a bit. It looks slightly lowered. So you want it more stock height? Is that what you're looking for?
A little bit more stock height, but I'd actually go with what Nick has done. I quite like what he's done because I think his wheels are wider. Mine would be tucked into the arch. So it would look different. I don't think it would look bad, but I think that's the thing I'd like to do before I do anything else, just to get it to look right, and then go some wheel alignment and maybe, look at changing the bolt pattern so I can put different wheels on it, or just go out and spend an obscene amount of money on some steel wheels.
But I think but isn't that the most important thing, Ajmal? I mean, isn't it the most important thing is to upgrade all your shocks, upgrade all the, the rubbers that have deteriorated, etc., and upgrade your wheels to the, the good tires, the steel wheels, and the exhaust? Isn't that the key things, apart from the mechanical side of the engine? But isn't that the key things you would want to do? I mean, I think interior-wise, it doesn't matter so much. It's more those things that are important at first, isn't it?
They are, but on mine, I've been really lucky because the suspension is pretty good. It rides the bumps really well. It doesn't rattle. I can't really see anything perished underneath. There were a couple of things with the brakes binding, but Jack fixed that. And it's really, it is just a stance thing. It needs to be at the right height. You can get adjustable spring plates, but they cost a ridiculous amount of money. And I think all it does is it means you don't have to take them off and move them on the torsion bar, whatever it is. So I think that I would like to do, number one thing.
But doesn't it come to a point with you? And we're still talking about wanting a 911, because some people will look at 912s because they can still find a 912, a 65 or a 65 to 69 912 only costs, well, depends where you buy it from, correct? If you can probably still find one pretty cheap in the US if you have to do some work for it. But a 65 to 69 912 is a quarter of the price, probably more, of the same year in a 911. You know what I mean? Those 911s are very, very expensive. 65 to 69 911s are really, really expensive. So it's still it's still an attractive option for people who want a 911. They might want to get into a 912, which is why I was asking you before, do you think people should go to the Classic first, or would you recommend they go to a 996? And if they go to a 996, should they buy the cheapest one like you did, or should they spend a little bit more and get something a little bit more sorted?
I think they should do a bit more due diligence than I did, which was literally I sorted by the cheapest one. I went, I'm going to go and buy that one. But if you do everyone, even people who aren't really into Porsches, if you say to them, oh, I've got a 996, they'll say, oh, IMS. But if you think, well, 151,000 miles and the IMS hasn't gone, it's been changed once, but it hasn't gone. And then you think, well, it's only a problem up to a certain point because you don't use it. And if you use it regularly, then it's unlikely to be a problem. But if you spend a little bit more and say, well, I'm going to get one that's a little bit more sorted, does the anxiety of the IMS go away? I don't think it does.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It becomes almost a bigger deal because you've spent more.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I'm always at the one, take the shortest leap to 911 ownership so you can tick that box.
So people who are listening that want a 911, you still think, go for the cheapest one, but do a few more checks. Maybe do a few more checks than what you did. Get it checked over a little bit more. Don't just buy it off the bat. Even though there's, it's very competitive out there and you will miss out on things if you wait too long. But you have to be sure. You have to be confident that you're happy with what you're purchasing. Because there are a lot of bad cars out there. There's still a lot of bad cars out there.
There's some that are overpriced. So you might look at something and think, well, it's advertised for £14,000, for example, and you might think, oh, it's not really worth that much, but it ticks the boxes that I need. It's got the right service. It's not been in a wreck. And it's in decent shape and drives great. When you go and see those, a lot of the times they've been advertised for quite a while. You need to check that. And what I would do is I would make an offer that reflects what it might be worth to me. And if you say, well, actually, to me, it's worth about 12 or 11 and a half, there's nothing wrong with making a cheeky offer. And if you, and someone might turn around and say, well, actually, I was waiting for somebody to offer me that. and you might get something that's good value for money rather than paying a little bit over the top. Because you're right, there are bad cars. They're priced quite high. And those are the ones probably putting a lot of people off, especially at that entry point.
Okay, so you have £30,000. You know, you're looking online like you did. A 912 comes up, and then a 996 comes up for 10,000. Which one do you buy? My budget £30,000. Do I buy the 996 for say £10,000 that I know I'm going to have to put money into, or do I buy the classic, which I know is going to appreciate probably quicker? And in the long term, like even your car, you say you don't want to spend the money on these things, but you know that if you sold your car today, you would get more than £30,000 for it, because the prices of 996, prices of 912, sorry, have gone up quite a lot. And even, you know, yours in the original sort of state that it is, and you know, it's mechanically, you drive it, it works, there's nothing wrong with it. You know that you probably, you know, your value has gone up quite a lot, probably more than the 996 actually, I would say. Or possibly, I don't know, but you paid very low for the 996, so it's a bit hard, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably it, because I paid abnormally low price for the 996. So, around about then they were going for 9.5 to 10,000. So from that point, it's gone up a little bit. On the 912, they're just on an upward trajectory. So I would say it's gone up by more. But if I've got £30,000 and I'm not probably your average person who's looking for that kind of car. Okay. So I would always go for the one that I like the look of and I think I would enjoy driving more.
Okay, here's another scenario actually. And it's a scenario, you know, everyone that I talk to, it's like, you know, I've just bought my new GT3, I've just bought my 996 GT3, I've just bought my 996 Carrera, I bought my 997, and I'm still looking. As soon as I get it, I'm in the driveway, I'm back online and I'm looking for another Porsche, right? I'm looking for something else. And I guess the thought for you has crossed your mind that you could, theoretically, you could sell your 996 and the 912 you have now, the extra money you've made on the 996, the extra money on the 912, and buy another 912 that, say, is a little bit more sorted. Is that something you would consider?
Probably not, no.
No? Because there's no value in that?
There's no value to me other than monetary value. And remember, I think we've probably talked about this before. There's a thing about what looks good on paper and what feels good to drive. Whereas when I drive my 912, I love the fact that I can thrash it and I can leave it wherever I want to and not worry about it getting scratched. And it's not a thing that I bought as an investment. I bought it because in the back of my mind, of course, it was there that it's not going to lose money. Yeah. But it wasn't a thing that I thought it needs to be treasured because it's going to be a big nest egg in the future. It was more, I bought it because I love driving it. I love driving it.
And that's a good way to look at it. You know what I mean? And I kind of knew you were going to answer it that way because I know you've said that once before. And I think that's how people have to look at it. You want a 911, you want something, buy the car that you actually want. You know what I mean? If you want a 911, don't buy a Boxster. If you want a 911, don't buy a Cayman. Try and get the 911. Try and get one at the price that you can afford. You know, you almost want to say wait or whatever, but you can't really wait too long because Porsche prices do jump up very, very quickly, as we all know. But, you know, you should always buy, like what you said, it's the passion. Buy what you want and that you're going to enjoy driving. Don't just buy it thinking, well, I'm going to buy this model because this model is going to go up more than the other model. That's not the way to do it, because then you'll just be disappointed. You know, you really will be disappointed.
Yeah. I think one of the things that struck me was I did see a video by the 911 guy, Lee Sibley, on YouTube, where he was talking about Rennsport. And he drove the new GT3. And he was trying to demonstrate, look how much power it has. And he just couldn't because he was behind a classic 911. And he said, I can't get enough distance for me to use the power. And I remember thinking that if I had in living in the UK, I suppose it's different for Steve. He lives in Sydney and the roads are different. But here, if I had a GT3 or I had a turbo, then would I be able to enjoy and access the power in the same way that I can on my 912 or my 996 or my MGB?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point.
because with when I drive my wife's Golf R, which is insanely fast, and it's a hatchback. I've said this before. I can't look at the speedo because the horizon's coming at me too fast, and the roads are quite narrow.
Yeah, and you think of a 911 Turbo S, double the power almost, right? Like probably twice as quick as the R.
Yes.
Yeah, and you think how?
Yeah, and it's. And with it being, rear wheel drive, the weight being at the back, and you've spoken before about the weight shifting when you're driving a 911. And if you're not aware of that and don't know how to manage it, it's very unforgiving. If you're not an amazing driver. So I think those are really important things to bear in mind, which is why I always say, go and drive one, which is sort of counter to everything I've ever done. But I would say go and drive one and find the one that you feel really passionate about driving. You think, yes, I'll enjoy this every single day.
It comes back to experience. And I had a really good conversation on the weekend with PJ, who's coming up on the owner stories, a guy with the 356A from the UK. And I know PJ listens to the podcast. And his story is great because his parents had, expensive cars when he was growing up. They were reasonably well off and he had expensive cars. And he didn't want that sort of car when he grew up. So he bought owned a lot of Volkswagens, Beetles, buses, all the really cool ones. And now he's got this 356A, which is just his dream car. It's a perfect car. But that's the sort of car he wanted. He wanted a car with character. He wanted a car with patina. You know what I mean? Because it's about the experience, And we all know the power of a 356 and the power of a 912. They're not 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 cars. They're experience cars. They're, going through the gears. They're enjoying that, like what you said. And in places like the UK and also Australia as well, I think you can really, obviously not on the main freeways and expressways, but, on the roads around in Australia and the UK, you can really enjoy cars like this. And I think that's really important. It is, and I keep saying it, Steve says, get a GT3 first, but I still want the 912. Like I started straying Ajmal and looking at 912Es. And then I thought, no, I don't want a 912E. You know what I mean? I still want a 912. I do really like 911 SCs. I do like them, and I think it's because James in Melbourne has just got another one. He's got a better red one. He bought one, and now he's bought another red one. So I'm going to get him back on the podcast and chat about SCs because I'm interested to know more about the SC. I think it's a really good model of the 911, and you just want that experience. And I think that's what's great about you. When you see you when you're in that 912 and you're driving it in your videos, it is about that experience, and you can see you're enjoying it. You know what I mean? It's not perfect. The car's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect. We keep coming back to that. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly. And it's I think I spoke about it on a video before, but it's, I like it. I like to have to think about what I'm doing because then you're enjoying it. In our Golf, it's autopilot. Everything's on autopilot. Yep. Whereas in the 996, in the 912, I think about everything I'm doing. And the car is quite unforgiving. If you don't press the clutch enough, it'll crunch the gears with the dogleg first gear. If you're not paying attention, you'll be in third or something like that. Second, trying to pull off, or God forbid, you're in reverse trying to move forward. Yeah. But I like that side of it, and I like the noise, I like the smell, I like all of those things, the drama of a drive. It's so different.
Yep. And I think, I guess the key message, I'm going to say the key message, that's a really weird thing to say, but the key message of the whole thing is you want a 911, people who don't have one, you want a 911, then you buy the one that you really want because it is about that experience. That's the whole thing about Porsche ownership. You know what I mean? Budget comes into it. It's budget and what you want, but you should really buy what you want because that's what you're going to truly enjoy. Don't just chase the dollars and think you're going to get something that's going to be, double the value in a couple of years' time because it may not happen, I always thought the 997 may go up more than what it has. It hasn't, and I really do think that the 996, I really, really do think the 996 may overtake the 997 temporarily like the 964 did with the 993. Obviously, the 993 now is caught up. 993 prices in Australia have, are about the same level. But there was a period there where they were a lot cheaper. Hey, how's your new Porsche, the white one you bought, Lego? Have you done it? Put it together yet?
I haven't. No, it's still in the box.
Oh, there it is. Man, it's so big, isn't it? Holy moly! Okay.
Yeah, it is.
All right, I cannot buy that in
it's-
London. I cannot buy that in London because I'll have to carry it back to Australia with me. So I'm gonna have to buy it in Australia. It's way too big.
Well, the thing is, you remember you were talking to Steve about this, about how you have to be a VIP with Lego to get one.
I still couldn't buy it, by the way. I still couldn't buy
But
it.
do you know what it means to become a VIP?
No, what?
You go in and you create yourself a username and a password so you can order things. And there's a tick box that says, "Do you want to be a VIP?" And you just go, "Yes." Yeah.
Okay, you didn't tell me that.
That was literally it.
Just so the listeners know, Ajmal sends me the thing saying he's ordered it. And I'm trying to order and it says not available. And I knew it was a VIP launch because that was the press release I read ages ago from Bricks and whatever, the Lego fan site or whatever it was. And I still couldn't buy it. But you didn't tell me you just had to go on and tick VIP.
I didn't want to make you feel bad.
I know there's a guy on Australia. There's a guy in Australia that I follow in north coast of Australia who's got a really good Porsche collection. He's bought one. He just bought two because he said he couldn't decide which way to make it, so he bought two of them so he can have one as a Targa and one as the
Targa.
I think a few people would do that actually. It sounds very excessive when you talk about it, but I'm sure a lot of people would do that.
I've never bought one of these before. And I know Steve's got a GT3, hasn't he?
Yeah, he got the GT3 RS one and built that. He had it for years and then he built it only recently.
Yeah, I think that'll be me. Because I've got my little toy 912.
Oh, really? Which one?
I think I sent you.
Yes.
Yes.
Ajmal's showing me his black. Oh, it's a black one too.
It's that one, yeah.
Looks good in black.
Black interior as
Looks good in black. It does look good in black. Yeah, steel wheels are good. You have to get the steel wheels for your 912, honestly. You have to invest in those.
I do. What did you think of those image wheels, the custom-made wheels?
I think they're quite good.
I showed you.
I think they're quite good. What brand is that, actually? Because I saw an advertisement came up on Instagram yesterday saying, one of these things is an ad, and it was the wheels. But I think they were Group 4 wheels. Is it Group 4, the company?
No, they're called Image Wheels.
Oh, okay.
It's a British company. And they're pretty much made to order.
They look good.
Because I thought they had a kind of an old Alfa Romeo Jaguar look about them. I prefer the Alfa Romeo side of it, but I thought about
you can't get an all pair though, right? You can't get an all pair.
No, I can. I feel uncomfortable because they will. So those made to order wheels probably cost about £450 each. And then you've got to get tires.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Whereas the steel wheels, I could probably buy a really crusty 924 or a 944 spare wheel, which is exactly the same.
All right.
As a steel wheel. So that's about £130 each on eBay.
Well, if you need to get a wheel refurbished in the UK, and to the listeners, if you're listening in the UK and if people don't know about it, XL wheels, Chris had XL wheels, and he did my wheels in the UK. I actually got my wheels done in the UK and carried them back in my luggage back to Australia. So he...
You're 997, you're 997 wheels.
Yeah, you don't know that story?
Really? I didn't know that.
Okay.
Really?
Spending a lot of time in London, as you know, and I wanted the lobster claw wheels, and I couldn't find them in Australia. I couldn't find them at a good price. And then I found Chris at XL Wheels through Piston Heads or Rainlist or something. So one of the forums in UK, actually. And then I emailed him and I said, look, I'm after a pair of lobster claw wheels. Do you have them? He said, yes. And then he sent me images and they were like immaculate. And I said, okay, I want to do a custom paint job on them, which I didn't have to do anything to them because they were like brand new wheels. And honestly, at the time he charged me very, very little for the four wheels. Like for four wheels, they were under £500. So it was really, really cheap. And then I got the refurbishment done. But he does all types of wheels. He refurbishes Fuchs wheels. He refurbishes all these wheels. He's actually really, really, really good. You could get them chromed. Mm-hmm. You could get a pair of wheels and get them really chromed.
Yeah, I think chrome's too much.
Too much?
I do want a decal on the side.
Yeah.
I do want a white circle on the side. And maybe one offset on the back.
Go to I Say Ding Dong and get the the Pegasus. I say ding dong. Get some Pegasus stickers for the side.
That's true. I have seen that.
Yeah, he's got great ones.
I thought about that. I don't know yet. I need the decal on. I need some fog lights.
Yep.
And obviously the stand's right. And then I do want a different exhaust. I do want it to sound different.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound great at the moment.
Nick put the Danks exhaust on, right? I think.
Yep, he did.
That's a great exhaust. That sounded really good.
Yep. I got a call off Jack, who was telling me that it sounded really good.
Yeah, you should fit that one. You should get the one. I mean, you don't want dual pipes, so you just want like the single pipe, or you like the pipes.
No, I'd be all right. I'd be all right with the dual pipes. The only thing is, obviously, you've got that little cutout for where the single pipe was, but I don't think that matters.
Yeah.
But I would like the dance one, but it's something like £800 or £900.
It sounds good though. It really does sound good.
It does sound good, and it would make a really big difference. So exhaust, stance sorted. I should really sort out some seat belts.
Yes.
Because I did do 120 kilometers an hour on Sunday.
Yeah.
With no seat
You're
belts.
a brave man. I couldn't do that.
Oh! I meant to say something right at the top. Obviously, first, congratulations to Steve. Welcome to the Two Daughters Club, because I have two daughters.
Oh, I thought you only had one daughter. I see her. I see her on
two.
Instagram in the baby cam, so I thought that was your one daughter.
Yeah, no, that's the little one. So there's a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. But what I was going to say up front was.
I thought you weren't congratulating Steve because he snubbed you on Instagram.
No, I still bear a grudge of that. But but what I wanted to say was, because Steve normally swears right at the beginning, and I wanted to say fuck shit bollocks right at the top. Because
now I'm going to get flagged by Apple. You watch.
Because Steve always he said worse stuff. I think he said motherfucker once.
He does. You're going to get me.
But he normally swears right at the top. And I thought, I'll get that in. I'll cover for Steve. I'll stand in for him on that. But I completely forgot, and I've now just said it at the end.
Yeah. Steve, if you're listening, see what's happened. You've started something really bad here. Now I'm going to get flagged by Apple. I'm going to have to say it's rated R, censorship.
Exactly. So...
thanks, Ajmal. I think we're hit the hour. I think I know you've got things to do. I know it's a weeknight. You've got wine to drink. You've got food to eat.
Yes, I have started doing that on my Instagram, mostly because there's not a lot else to do.
I like it when there's like one bottle becomes 2 bottles, becomes 3 bottles.
Oh yeah, that's only from Tuesday. Mondays I wouldn't do that, but Tuesday's the new Friday.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming on today. It's been great. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
It was good not having to talk to myself like last week. Last week I thought it was a bit odd, but I have to say I had so many good messages last week from people saying, they still enjoyed it even though I was talking solo. But everyone misses Steve. Steve always thinks that, he's not that important, but everyone misses Steve. I keep telling him he is important. But I really appreciate you stepping in, and it was really easy because, you and I talk all the time, and it's just good to have a chat. So thanks so much for coming on, mate.
No, I really, really enjoyed it. I've been excited about coming on for a few days now, thinking about it. And and hurry back, Steve. Obviously, we do miss you.
Yeah.
He's got his
hands full. He's got his hands full.
Yeah,
now.
just a little bit. Yeah. He can't wait to get back, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. Anything else before we go?
No, that's it. The only other thing I was going to say was. To everybody listening, and on the title of this podcast, less procrastination. Don't create noise around what you're trying to do. Keep your eye on what you're trying to do. And do you know what? There's a Porsche out there for everybody, and there's a 911 out there for everybody.
Yeah, and to add to that, it is, like I keep saying, it's about budget, but it's also buying the one you want. You do have to buy the one you want. You know what I mean? And Ajmal's pointed that out pretty, then he's 912. He doesn't want another one. That's the one he wanted. He's got the one he wanted. You know what I mean? And it fitted your budget. It was still not as expensive as some of them, but you still got a 912. Yep. You know what I mean? And I think you bought a good car for the money. I still think it's a good car for the money because I know what the prices are. And it's not easy to find one at 30,000. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I'm very guilty of when it comes to buying something small. So it's like buying a pair of shoes. I know I'm going to wear them every day. They have to be really comfortable. I'll go to the shop 3 times when we're allowed and try them on and think, oh, is that right? But when it comes to a bigger purchase that I think there's a chance I might talk myself out of this, I kind of almost close my eyes and just leap in. Probably not the best advice to everybody out there.
See,
but it's for me, it works.
See, my wife knows this, and people that know me very well know this. See, the thing is, I always look like I buy things spur of the moment, like watches, cars, and I just do it quickly. And like my family, like, oh, I bought a 911. Oh, I bought a watch or whatever. The thing is, when you're now being on this podcast and doing this, for the public, so to speak, everyone knows that I take a long time to get there. And then it looks like I've made a quick decision, but I actually haven't. So, my secret is out. My secret is out.
Well, that was your first message to me, wasn't it? It's like, what's this? And then one video you've said you want to get a 912, and on the next one you've said, I've got one. How did that happen?
Yeah, I know. It was like, what?
This year we have to get you in a 912, whether it's test driving or something. When you come to London, lockdown will be eased. We'll sort that out.
Yep. Hopefully back in London at Easter. So that'll be good. All right, mate. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. That was brilliant.
All right. So everyone that's listening, if you don't know who Ajmal is and you don't know about Flat Cap Driver, check out his Instagram, Flat Cap Driver, and check out his YouTube of the same. Follow, subscribe, thumbs up, all that stuff that you do when you go to those sites, and help support him, because he's got some great stories over there talking about his 996, the cheapest 996 in the UK, I think it was, wasn't it? Almost the cheapest one.
Yeah.
And his 912 in blue, which is really, really cool. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.